Hello, I'm Frank Jernigan, and I am working on a scarf that will be published in the summer issue of Cast On magazine. And I'd like to show you one of the techniques that I use in working this scarf. I'd like to show you how to weave a color that you're not using, how to weave it in vertically on the back side of the garment so that you can carry it up from one place where you use it to the next place a number of rows higher. This is a vertical weave, not a horizontal weave, in case you have seen the video about the Archangel Wing shawl where we were weaving yarns horizontally. This is a slightly different technique. So first let me ask, why would you want to weave the yarn in up the back of the fabric? This shawl, as you see, repeats these color sections over and over. I think it's about 12 or so times. I haven't actually counted them recently. But if you cut the yarn every single time you finish the color B, which is the gradient color, changing colors all the time, if you cut it every time, you would have 24 more ends to weave in at the end. And since I don't like to weave in ends, I prefer to work a different technique, which I developed for going up the wrong side of the fabric. Doesn't it show, you might ask? Well, yes, it does. So let me show you what it looks like. Here is the wrong side, here is the right side. Notice on the right side, there is no indication that there's a colored yarn of the opposite color going up the back. None of it shows on the right side of the fabric. However, on the wrong side, you can see where it has been woven up vertically from down here where it was used last, all the way up this blue section to here where it was used the next time. And you might say, well, I really don't like those. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's no different than the pearl bumps that also show on the wrong side. It's just a different set of multicolored bumps that show on the back side. I would also like to point out, while we're looking at the back side, that first of all, this technique allows the yarn, the fabric to stretch, and garter stitch is very stretchy, so it needs to be able to stretch. You don't want a straight vertical piece going straight up the back, because that would be a certain length and it would eliminate any ability for that edge to stretch. So I actually weave it in such a way that it goes under one pearl bump between, say, the second and third stitch, and then on the next row it's woven between the pearl bump just between the first and second stitch, then back to the second and third stitch, then back to the first and second stitch. And that zigzag line then gives it enough extra fabric, enough extra yarn to allow for the stretch. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do. Just quickly show you where we are in the pattern. The module is knitted in 3 sections. Each panel is knitted first with color A, which is this solid color, this triangular section on the left side. Then that ends by knitting all the way down to the right side, where you then begin knitting color B. And you knit color B across all these stitches all the way up here, all the way back to the top, and then one last line all the way back down to the beginning, right here. And that's where I am right now. I am now going to start knitting the color A section again, which is at the underside of the next repeat, if you catch what I mean, or it's over this color B section. So that's where we are in the pattern, and here's how I work it. First of all, I only weave the yarn in when I'm on the right side of the fabric. that makes the alternating color trapped by the pearl bump on the wrong side of the fabric. If you did the weaving in when you were working the wrong side of the fabric, the yarn would be carried to the front. Also, by zigzagging back and forth between the first 2 stitches and the second 2 stitches, it holds the yarn completely in the back, and there is no peeking through as it goes up. It's held completely against the back of the fabric. So what I do first of all, when I'm changing colors, I take the old color and I take it around to the back, and I pick up the new color underneath it. I then knit 1 stitch, pass the yarn I'm weaving in over the top, and then knit a 2nd stitch. I do not pass it back, I simply carry it over, and I let go of my hand and I let it go underneath. This instruction says to knit to stitch number 5, and then turn and go back to stitch number 1. Because I'm on the wrong side of the fabric, I do not weave the yarn in. On the second row, because I did the weaving in step between the first and second stitch the first time, I'll do it between the second and third stitch this time. So I'm going to knit 2 stitches, often I stick the needle through first, then I carry it over to the front and finish working that. As you see, that, I don't know if you can tell, but that traps the yarn underneath this pearl bump right here. The next row says to knit to stitch number 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, here's a little tip that will help tremendously. I discovered it about the 3rd module in, and I was really glad I did because it really makes things simpler. Notice because of the way you're weaving in, the yarns tend to get tangled. However, if you are careful, they don't really get tangled, they get twisted. If you are careful, every time you turn the work, to turn it, I don't know how to describe it, either you turn it clockwise if you're looking down on it, or you turn it to the left if you're looking at the front of the fabric. That's 2 ways of saying the same thing. You rotate it to the left. And when you rotate it to the left, and then do your short row turn and knit back to the edge, and then rotate to the left again, the yarn that got twisted by the weaving in effect gets untwisted, and they stay untwisted. So I'm going to turn it again to the left, and if you can follow this yarn here, this is not working so well on camera. All right, I'm turning it to the left, and the yarns do not cross. I'll do that once again. On this row, I'm doing it between the first and second stitch, so I knit 1, start the second stitch, bring the colored yarn to the front, color B I should say, and then drape it over the needle and then just finish the knitting. And that's really all there is to it. It carries it up the back, zigzags back and forth, and if you keep turning the work to the left, it doesn't twist the yarns together. Turning to the left. Heading back down. Turn to the left again. That was between the first and second stitch, so now sometimes I can't remember what I did last, so just look over the top and see, oh yeah, that was between the first and second stitch. So this time I'm going to knit 2, carry the yarn over to the front, knit another one, and lo and behold, the 2 yarns are not twisted. So that's how you weave the yarn up the back of the fabric. Here's the little bit that I just did. I hope that works well for you.